Hello, hi John.
Hey, how are you, Jackie?
Yeah, good, thanks. Good, thanks. Really, really grateful that you've joined this podcast today where we're going to be talking about dyslexia and information management. Before we dive in, introduce yourself and tell me about you.
I'm John Cox. I'm now based here in, well, not so sunny Canberra. It's actually miserable here in Canberra at the moment. But yeah, in Australia, originally from Essex, which apparently is quite sunny at the moment. So yeah, miss it when it's like this. It's the opposite. So yeah, I work in information and records management. I'm not a practitioner per se. I work for a company called Datacom IT. We work in the GLAM sector, so we do a lot of preservation, digitization, digital preservation, really interesting work, a lot of historic stuff for cultural institutions. But my background is very varied. So I started doing e-discovery back in when I first come to Australia. I've sold software, always in a sales role. But yeah, really love working in this space, mainly for government here in Canberra because it's a government town. And it also segues with my interests. So I love history and I love sport, culture, music. So working in and around archives, I get to see lots of fascinating, interesting things. Yeah, I've got that lucky thing where my job intersects with my passions.
Beautiful, and that's what everyone wants, and they aspire to have that, don't they? What sports do you play?
So I'm originally football, being from England. I was a big, they call it soccer out here. It drives me up the wall. Football. I'm a Liverpool fan, which like speaks to my age. Everyone from where I'm from in Essex was a Spurs or West Ham fan, but I was a Liverpool fan and still am. And we won the league this year, so I'm very happy. But
Yay!
mainly where I live in Canberra, there's lots of lakes and rivers, so I spend most of my spare time on the lake, on the river, paddleboarding, kayaking with my children, with my wife, my family. So yeah, it's a lovely lifestyle out in Australia. If you like the great outdoors, I can't speak highly enough of it. It's a beautiful country.
Yeah, I love the great outdoors, all the things that I like to do on the water, kayaking. Although I'm not great at paddleboarding, can't stand up, but kayaking is definitely one of it's a real skill in itself, isn't it?
Yeah, it's good fun. It's really good fun. I got into it and I just got the bug. It's beautiful. Lovely way to see Canberra. Yeah, it's a great hobby.
Yeah, is that the lake in the middle before Parliament? You've got the
Yeah.
Parliament face in front. There's the lake there. So yeah, I kind of visited there. So lovely. Yeah, I'm more of a swimmer myself, but thank you for that. I can't get over that you've still got your Essex accent, so I'm having to remember right now that you're in Australia and I'm in the UK. But I feel because we're so close together, but yet so far.
Yes, yeah, and because your accent, mine will get stronger. So yeah, if I'm talking to an Australian person, it softens down, but as soon as I'm back home, it goes up to 11 again.
Yeah. It's very clear. I think a couple of people have said, "Oh, you're from Essex," and I'm like, "Yes, I am. How do you know that?" So it's that Essex twang, isn't it? But
Yeah.
beautiful. That's not what we're here to talk to today about. So, John, we kind of connected on LinkedIn, and one of the big things that you sort of reached out to me was that I was very open about my dyslexia. Now that kind of got us to talking, and I've also had some other people who follow me on LinkedIn say the same thing, that I'm very proud to be dyslexic, and I think that's a really good thing. So I'm really grateful you're joining me today to talk about one of our, as people would say, weaknesses, but I find them superpowers.
That's
Can
right.
you share your experience with dyslexia and how it's kind of impacted your career in information management?
So it would have started at school. I'm a talker, so my written skills were terrible. So I'd be, hand up, I know the answer. But then when it would come to the test, if they could read the answers, then my handwriting's shocking. And I read a lot slower, and so I always did okay at school, but I was sort of hamstrung by my written and my reading skills. And then when I did my exams, but I didn't do great in my exam. So in my mocks, I did really well, where it was multiple choice. But with the coursework and stuff, it was shocking. Someone suggested that I get tested for dyslexia. So I'm 48. At the time, it wasn't a thing per se. You didn't hear about it as much. So I got tested, and sure enough, yeah, I'm dyslexic. And when they explained it to me, the guy explained it, said it's a short-term memory thing. So he said, instead of remembering like numbers, you're probably remembering patterns. So he said in like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, that's remembering 5 things. But if you remember all 34 and 5, that's only remembering 3 things. So you've got to find little ways of managing that short-term memory. Over time, that's sort of what I've done. I've learned that, you know, storytelling is a good one for me, rhyme and rhythm, music. And then as I've learned more about the world and society, I've learned actually that's what human beings have always done. You know, things like the Rig Veda and the Homeric text, they were oral texts, and they were sung or recited or performed and remained actually quite accurate and consistent for thousands of years before they were ever written down. And then you find out that a lot of very successful people are dyslexic, and that's exactly how they do it. It's through episodic memory, using pattern recognition and often story and narrative to remember things. So my wife drives her up the wall. I don't remember to turn the dishwasher on, but I remember the minorest plot point in a film we've seen. I'll be, oh, he's about to do so and so. I remember that, and she's like, that's like what? It drives her crazy. But yeah, that's it. That's sort of how it goes for me. Yeah, and I think a lot of other people with dyslexia would have had that same experience.
Yeah, definitely. And I think I've had the same thing. So certainly on storytelling, it's much easier for storytelling. I wasn't actually picked up until I was 21 years old at university.
Yeah, wow.
So I was known as the problem child at school, you know, because I was disruptive, because I had no attention span. I've definitely got ADHD. Diagnosed, but I've definitely got some ADHD. And they kind of go hand in hand with dyslexia anyway. And yeah, they were just like, oh, she's stupid. Those types of things that you get tarred brushes with. And I think that has had kind of an impact in my professional career. So when we were talking just before, weren't we, that I really resonated with you because you said you didn't disclose you were dyslexic until you got the job. Now, in one of my careers, I disclosed it on the medical health form, but it then didn't come through to the employer. And that was kind of in a role where it was very heavily written in the NHS, had to read things, had to have that sort of like attention to details. I really kind of did at that point struggle, but then you've got kind of the other things that help us to achieve the written things. So what's some of the biggest challenges that you faced, and how did you overcome them?
Well, it's ironic. So I work mainly on government, and I do a lot of big tenders. So, you know, there might be 5 or 6 big documents, terms and conditions, contracts, P&Ls, and ironically, like, I've ended up where I got into sales because I thought, oh well, I'll just be talking and getting to know people, and it won't be so much of the written. And yeah, now I'd say probably 3/4 of my time is responding to tenders. So I've had to learn a heap of things and tricks and tools and ways around that. And for me, it's about just taking my time. And I listen to everything. So if I get a PDF document, I'll get it converted into Word and I'll listen to it. And anything I write, rather than proofreading's pointless.
Yep.
I don't spot my own mistakes, but I hear them perfectly. So that's been a super cheat for me, has been the listening, the audio. So I'm a big fan of audiobooks and things like that. So yeah, things like spell check, reminders. I have to be very process driven. So I make lots of notes. I make sure I prepare, I take my time, and I try and I have to allocate time when it's quiet to do those particular tasks. So yeah, it has to be, when I'm writing from scratch, it's it's like an iterative process. So I'll do draft, then I'll listen, then another draft, then listen. And the similar thing with reading. I can read a page and then I get to the end and I realise I haven't absorbed any of it, and I just go back to the beginning. When I listen to it, it all goes in. So that's been a game changer for me. But yeah, hasn't always been that way.
No, it hasn't always been that way. And obviously I've learned, and probably you have, over age, you learn more about yourself, more about strengths, and you know, adaptations to it. And I took a book called it's called The Gift of Dyslexia, but being dyslexic. I call it the grit of dyslexia because the font on it, so you can buy it on Amazon. But it's really interesting what you said about the reading, because we're actually 3D, we're 3D processors. So for the example to describe it to you is that if I said to you right now, I say elephant, in your mind, what are you thinking right now?
A picture of an elephant.
Is there anything else with the elephant?
Anything with the elephant. In my mind, a cartoon elephant.
Nice. Can you describe that to me? What does it look like to you in your mind?
Okay, it's got like a long trunk, it's got big ears, and it's like out of a Disney elephant, like that kind of a thing.
Fabulous. So when I think of that, I think of an elephant under a tree eating from the branches with its family, and it's in the in the sort of land. So in terms of 3D imagery, I've got everything all around it, so you can see all around it. And I tried this test with a couple of other people, and people just saw the word elephant. So
Really?
they saw the actual word elephant. Yeah, because it's really interesting how people's minds process things.
Yeah, right.
And then I'd ask somebody else, and they just saw an elephant. So just an elephant standing round, nothing in the background. It's a grey background. The elephant was just there. And one of the things that you'd said, which is why I refer to this, is that when we read text, so text isn't a 3D image, it's a flat-facing image. So in this book, it actually helps you to correct, it's called dyslexia correction, that you get some Play-Doh and you respell words in Play-Doh or some form of clay, and you respell words in 3D images. So you like pick it up, turn it round, and it actually helps improve your handwriting, but also your spelling and your processing, because you've created a 3D image in your mind. So this is currently what we're doing at home with my daughter, because she's also dyslexic as well.
Yeah, that's lovely.
And I think it's really interesting that when you said you read things, you don't remember it. And that is why we don't remember it, because it's just flat text. And there's also something in there as well that it says, you say to a dyslexic, well, read it again, because you actually think it's going to go back in. I don't know if you have the same experience, but when you read it again, you just think, I'm going to go back and try and read it again, but you still don't process what you've read again. So it's absolutely pointless. Yeah. So how has dyslexia influenced your decisions to work in records and information management?
So I worked in data acquisition when I first started. So I went travelling. I didn't go to university. So that was, I guess, the biggest influence in my career is when they diagnosed me, they said, look, you could go to university, but you'd need extra help, and various situations in my life. I just went travelling, and I worked in clubs, and I worked on boats and did lots of fun, exciting things. So when I came back to the UK, I realised probably sales was going to be the easy thing for me, because I just assumed I wouldn't need to do as much reading or writing. And I ended up, long story short, I ended up in Australia working for the DX here, which led to a job doing e-discovery in Canberra. And e-discovery, a lot of it involves records management fundamentals. It's all the same processes, it's chain of custody, providence, things like taxonomy, the structure, life cycle management, all of these things. And it all made sense to me. I understand processes. I was able to sort of see it in my mind. And it just made sense to me. So it was one of these things where sort of opportunity met a situation, that I had a sort of proclivity to do these things. So I started doing a lot of digitisation work for the federal government. We did ACT bushfires matter in 2009. And trying to sell in Australia. So the Australian government isn't like the government in England. In England, there's just the government and the council. Here, there's loads of governments. There's your local government, there's the state government, there's the federal government, and then so there's a lot of it. So having to learn all of that stuff. But I got involved in RIMPA through a friend from Objective. So Objective is an EDRMS here in Australia that's widely used by the government. So I started volunteering my time. So I had a bit of a guerrilla approach to marketing. So I would volunteer my time in order to sort of get access. So Thomas from RIMPA would drive me, because I couldn't drive back then, to these planning meetings. And we did a thing called Information Awareness Month. So Information Awareness Month was the librarians, archivists, the knowledge managers, the data managers, all would come together as a consortium, the National Archives, the National Library. So I would be sat in a room with all of the different sort of facets of our industry, and that really made sense to me. It made me realise the role of a record versus data, and then how that's synthesised and then applied as knowledge, and just how that all worked. And it made sense in my mind. And that also worked socially. I connected all of these people together and how they all worked within that record's life cycle, but also into the structure of the Australian government. So I was able to use my social skills, sort of that emotional intelligence that you develop over time. I think as well, my personality is quite opposite to a lot of records people. Records people are very introverted. Yeah, and I'm not. So I'm quite social. So a lot of the people on the committee, they didn't want to do all the stuff. They were good at the processes. They were methodical. I was out talking to all of their customers. I would bring people to the events. I would be happy to speak at the events, and they'd be happy to do all of the logistics and the organising. So it sort of worked. It was a symbiotic relationship, and that taught me a lot. It taught me that you've always got something to offer in a team, and I think I'm very much attracted to people who are opposite to me. So like my wife is the complete opposite to me. I do all the talking. She's the one who's organised and methodical, and I'm the one who's all over the place but talk. But I'm a problem solver and creative, whereas she's the one who actually delivers on those promises, or maybe brings me back down to earth and says, John, that's not going to work, and maybe could you stop talking?
Totally relate to that. Totally relate to that. I'm the same situation, but it's good to have a yin and yang with. I always say I wouldn't want two jackets in my house because it would just be way too much.
Exactly what I say. Yeah, I'm too much for myself.
I love that. So you talked earlier about audio tools, so you listen back to it. Do you use any AI tools to help with your work?
I've done, yeah. So the company I worked for previously, we did a lot of the election processing. So obviously AI, you have to be very careful about what you put into it and what you don't. With government work as well around security. So I have to be quite careful what I can and what I use it for and what I don't. So, but what I do use it for is prompts. So I might say, give me the structure for a webinar on preservation digitization, and it just gives me the bullet points and a structure to work from. I might write perhaps like in Microsoft 365, it will give me suggestions on how to just restructure a paragraph. Things like that are super helpful. I also like a thesaurus, not repeating yourself in the same sentence. I use if I'm doing webinars, I use a teleprompter. I've got it on my phone, so I can write what I want down and actually have it like a newsreader would. Mm-hmm. So I'm trying to do, it's allowed me to be a bit more ambitious, and it's given me the confidence to be able to do more. So normally I might only do one event a year, but this year I've already done 3, and I've got another 3 that I'm planning. And that's just because of the tools I'm using. The teleprompter, AI stuff, things like that. It has given me the confidence to try more. And seeing you do it, honestly, seeing all the stuff that you've been doing, it's been a bit of an inspiration and made me realise, you've got to get out there and get amongst it.
Yeah, thank you. And I'm the same. So I have this massive brain dump on kind of Word, and then I use it to rewrite. So I didn't have much confidence in blogs or posting on LinkedIn or things like that. And I think I'd always get someone to double check it. I have never got happy with listening to audio or to speak to type, because sometimes, although I look at a blank paper, when I'm just writing, I get loads of brain ideas when I'm actually in the zone. So I have to make sure, like you, quiet spaces. And a couple of people that have reread my work in its rawest format say, wow, I can actually see how your brain functions. So that's always kind of a light conversation. But yeah, I've definitely found it for those moments to help restructure with spelling, writing, and those types of things, and then you can go back and rewrite it. So yeah, I've definitely helped with confidence for it as well. Beautiful. So what other tools have you found that would be techniques or helpful for managing dyslexia in your professional life?
I thought the dictation one would be amazing, but because my accent is useless.
You need to come back to the UK then.
It just gets it wrong. Like, none of them, Android, Apple, the Essex accent just doesn't work. So yeah, that's not been great. I use a lot of reminders, like calendars, CRM. So working in sales, I use databases, like records management practices. So making sure like version control, saving things, like I say, having an iterative process. So starting with just a brain dump, refining, synthesizing information, taking it in, just going away, doing something else, coming back to it with fresh eyes. Having second opinions on things helps. Working in part, having a good team around you, people whose opinion you value. That's great. I really like working in a team. Like Teams is great for that. So if I'm doing a tender, we'll put all the tender documents in. We'll have we'll have a bid team meeting, capture everyone's ideas, and then we'll have a shared document that we can all use, and everyone being able to track changes, things like that are super helpful. Lots of notes, heaps of notes, I find, and then just correct it, go through over and over again. So it's time consuming. Every email I send, I have to listen to it before I send it. Like, I literally have to write the email and then just do the listen back function, and then yeah, it's good to go generally. So yeah, that's how I have to do it that way.
Oh, okay. So you said you're a local ambassador for Rimper. So tell me a bit more about that.
Yeah, so before COVID, I would work for IIM. I'd work for, which is the Institute of Information Management, but COVID sort of killed them. I did volunteer, or I would support ALIA, ASA. I would go to all the different industry things, but I've always been involved in Rimper. So I was involved in Rimper when it was RMAA, before they changed the name. So I think the first conference I went was Gold Coast 2010. And I've always been involved through Information Awareness Month, which is now Information Awareness Week. So, and I just found that being involved in an industry that you actually are trying to sell into, I think it's super important, advocating, getting to understand people's jobs. Like, part of my job is to understand people's motivation, what their problems are. And because I'm not a practitioner, and I know, particularly in records management, if you've never opened the mail, if you haven't created a record, if you haven't had to do freedom of information requests, you have to be able to understand the pressures and the challenges of the job. So I've really tried to get involved in Rimper, because that's the only way I can do that, is by going to the events, getting involved in round tables, community of practices. So yeah, after COVID, I found all of the other industry peak bodies sort of lessened, and Rimper just grew when Anne came on board, became Rimper Global. The first conference back after COVID was amazing, and it's just gone from strength to strength. So when they changed from having local chapters to having ambassadors, yeah, I put my hat in the ring. So yeah, it's me and Julie Carpenter, we're the local ambassadors for Rimper here in Canberra. Julie has a national role on the board as well. So yeah, that's how it came about.
Beautiful. So as dyslexics, I always find that we find the gaps in problems. Have you been able to, as a local ambassador, have you been able to feed some of your superpower, I'm going to call them because I absolutely think they are, right, back into to help shape the vision of Rimper Global?
Definitely. So I was part of I joined a hackathon team. So Louise Curran, I was supposed to. So the hackathon was a great example of that. So we had a team that was public servants, records managers, academics, students, and then John, and whatever.
You're not just John.
But I think I was able to give like a different perspective, and it worked. You know, they all had one particular perspective, and I was able to fill that niche of the lay person, if you want to, you know, the person who maybe, if I understood it, anyone would understand it. And that helped us win. We won the hackathon. So now I'm on the hackathon committee for Rimpa. A lot of what I do for Rimpa is because I'm out selling to Rimpa members anyway. I will advocate for Rimpa. So I'll be, talking to someone about their digitization or their sentencing project. And normally it's 80% how's the family, how, getting to know each other, chit chat, gossip, complain about Donald Trump, and about 20% work, you know how it goes. And then I'll try and tack on at the end of it, are you going to the next Rimpa Live? What did you think of the last one? Did you know we've got a webinar coming up? So I can do the Rimpa ambassador role as part of my day-to-day job. And it's given me credibility. No one wants a salesperson who just bothers them, doesn't really understand records. So being part of Rimpa has allowed me access to places that I wouldn't have otherwise had. And I make sure that when I'm at Rimpa events, I only have my Rimpa hat on. And then if I'm a paid sponsor, well, then then that's when I'll do my day job. So it's a balance. And I think that's really important because, the sponsors do pay the rent ultimately and keep the lights on for everyone else.
So what would be your advice to anybody looking new to come into a profession that is dyslexic but isn't as open as we are about it?
I would say take your time. Understand how your mind works. Understand what you need. So if that is peace and quiet, if that's identifying people in your team that have skills that you don't have, finding tools. So all the things we've mentioned, for me, it happens to be listening to things back, lots of lists, reminders, lots of notes. So I would say find your process that works for you. Be open-minded. Understand that what really helped for me, I heard an evolutionary biologist say that neurodivergence isn't an accident. It's happened on purpose. So in the general population, we need a mix of types. Our type is we have a weakness around short-term memory, but we have a strength around creativity and around problem solving, pattern identification, storytelling. So just remember that it's a strength. Everybody has strengths. Everybody has weaknesses. Understand what yours are. Lean into the strengths and compensate for the weaknesses.
Amazing. I couldn't have said that better myself. So what do you think employers could do to support?
The biggest help I've had is people asking, what can I do to support you? And when people ask what support you need, tell them, don't be shy in saying, I need a little bit of extra time. I need to download this app. Can you, like in certain IT, IT help desk is your friend, this, can I have a converter so I can convert PDFs to Word documents so that I can listen to them? If dictation helps you, ask your IT team to give you those tools. For the amount of money it costs versus the productivity gains that they'll get, they're not going to say no. And with AI now, it's pennies. These things a lot of them are free. So yeah, I would say find the tools that help you. Make sure you understand that they've all got risks, they've all got limitations. But yeah, technology is your friend. I always say to people, if it was before the computerization, I'd be digging holes or something else. I wouldn't be even allowed in an office,
Yeah, absolutely. I would always advocate that if people could contact us and ask us questions as well if they're not sure. There is also sort of dyslexic associations around the world for support for both employers and people inside it. As I said, that book, the Grit, I call it, but it's The Gift of Dyslexia. It's a really worthwhile read as well. John, it's been absolutely fantastic today. Thank you so much for your time. I've really had the best time just talking to you about our weaknesses and how our weaknesses can be our strengths at the same time.
Thank you.
So how can people reach you?
So my email is john.cox@datacomit.com.au. So that's john.cox@datacom.
Beautiful. Are you also on LinkedIn as well? So
I'm on
reach out via
LinkedIn. Yeah, please. Yeah. So it's JOHNCOX, and I'm on LinkedIn. I'd love to hear from anybody who would like any advice, anybody who wants to get into records management, anybody who's looking to get into sales or move out to Australia, and or a Liverpool fan who just wants to talk about football. Always happy to.
Beautiful. Well, from over here in Essex to your Essex accent, thank you so much for your time. Thanks for listening.
Thank you, Jackie. It's been a pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you for listening to the Journals of the Information Entrepreneur with me, Jacqueline Stockwell. I hope you found this episode inspiring and helpful and have some takeaway tips that can be useful to you. If you liked this episode, please like, review and share it with your friends. Your support helps us reach more information leaders to stay inspired and listen to great content. Want to test out your strengths and weaknesses and measure it against our Empower framework? Please complete the scorecard. It's a great way to improve and evaluate your skills. You can find the scorecard at the end of the description of this podcast. Stay tuned for a new podcast every Thursday, and remember to be bold, be brave and be beautiful.